Aloha Friday, everybody. Thank you for being with me on this nice Friday here in Florida. I don't know how it is. I know how it is in Hawaii, but I don't know how it is where you are at. And I'm just waiting on Jared to come in. And while we wait, matter of fact, he's there right now. So let me just throw him in here real quick. hey,
Hey,
how
Enrique.
you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I had a little hiccup technically and had to do some troubleshooting, but everything's good to go.
No problem, no problem. Hey, it's Aloha Friday, bro. We don't sweat we don't sweat that, right?
I
But thank
appreciate
you
it.
for being with me tonight. We're talking leadership, peaceful, powered leader. This is crazy when you're talking about how leaders normally want to govern, right? They want to lead from the front, and or in the back they're whipping they're whipping everybody. It's an intriguing concept, one that I subscribe to, but I wanted to hear it from the author, right? And folks, if you haven't been following Jared or are connected with Jared, he created this book right here, and I'll show it here in a second. But it's becoming a peaceful, powered leader, and so first of all, Jared, take a little bit and tell us about you, and then we'll get into the whole philosophy behind what brought you to write this book.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Enrique, and appreciate the opportunity to be here talking with you. And just a little background about me. I first started off in the Air Force, and that's where started out working in computers and realizing my passion was working with people. And so I took a special duty assignment to be an adult educator and fell in love with that, fell in love with really being able to impact people in different ways, partner with people. And so after I left the Air Force, I assumed different roles in adult education, organizational, and talent development. And I've been doing that for about 17 years. I was a vice president of talent development for a healthcare organization in Western South Dakota, and then was a director of people and organizational development for a healthcare organization in Central Oregon. And am now back in Florida, where I'm originally from, and really enjoying the opportunities that I have here and do some internal consulting as well as external with my business, Peaceful Power Leadership LLC, and it's just continuing to live what I call my why, my purpose, which is to help others grow and develop and inspire them to take action. And that's that big piece. Taking action is what I've been working on over the last few years because as I followed my passion for adult education and working with leaders and their development, I saw a lot of leaders that wanted to grow, wanted to develop, but didn't necessarily have the time frame or the process figured out. And that's part of what led me to write the book.
Well, that's wonderful, and first of all, brother, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
I spent plenty of time on an Air Force base, being weather. METOC is a multi, I guess, service type of organization, and we all get coupled into the same schools. So I spent a lot of time, and as I progressed, so some of those airmen come back to Class C school, and then the more advanced schools, and I could follow their trajectory along the way. So thank you for that service. So the instructor part, and I know because I also spent some time as an instructor myself. That instructor part really molds you and defines you as a leader. Instructor duty, for all those out there that are service in the service and have not experienced instructor duty, you got to go. You got to
Yeah.
go and try that out. The caliber of folks that go through those pipelines and those schoolings and get to invest in airmen or sailors or Marines is just top notch, right? You get the
Yeah.
best of the best when you're talking about instructors and drill sergeants and all of that stuff. So thank you for that as well. Now, we're all trained as leaders as we're coming in and through the service. There's a part where you got to transition out, right? You gotta leave that behind and mold your way into or move your way into civilian life. How was that for you coming out?
Yeah, that was an interesting piece because as you know, sometimes that's hard and it was something that thankfully being an adult educator, that instructor the last few years of my service, it was something that was very mindful because I had people who were leaving the Air Force, they were retiring and they would come through and they did something like one individual, I remember he said, well, I worked on missiles and it doesn't exactly transfer to a job outside. I'm retiring, I'm 43. And he said, I'm trying to figure out how to really be able to describe my leadership, what that means, what my rank translates to. And I heard that from a lot of people. And so I knew it wasn't necessarily just going to be apples to apples or oranges to oranges. And I was mindful of that. And so actually, the first job that I took was a job that I had started when I was in the Air Force. And that was one thing that I heard from some people is they said, the biggest thing is remember to stay humble. If it's an organization that you want to work in, do what you have to do to get your foot in the door. And that may mean that you're not starting in a position that you would hope for, or that would be equivalent to what you were doing in the Air Force. But you bring forward that mentality, you bring forward those values, you bring forward those behaviors. People are going to take notice as you start to work towards having those outcomes, and opportunities will open up. And that's what happened. I had a great leader who she was very open with me and she had prior service experience. And she said, hey, I don't have a role that would be the role that I'd want to put you in, but I do have this role and we'll work on something else. And she really was an advocate for me to where I spent a year in the organization with her doing some technical training. And then from there, I had the opportunity to take a role as a corporate trainer with learning and organizational development team, had an awesome leader there, and then got to step into that leadership, that professional development. Had another great leader who also was retired from the Air Force, was a mentor, a coach to me, and opened the door and exposed me to all different learning opportunities, possibilities, introduced me into the world of coaching. And so that first year, I could have been saying, oh, this job, I did this job out in the Air Force. What am I doing? I spent all that time. I have my degree. I'm working on my master's degree. But it was that mindset of, hey, this is a great organization. I can see it. And I can see there's already some great leaders that are willing to invest in me. And I'm going to take that opportunity. And through that process, it just kept opening door after door after door until, as I shared in that organization, I ended up resigning over a decade later, and I was vice president of talent development for the organization, one of about 30 executives in a pretty large healthcare organization. And it was just a wonderful experience.
I love that you highlight the fact that hey, there was somebody there, and for veterans that may be listening, there's going to be somebody there, and so to kind of there's always these fears that come out of a transition. So um, there's going to be somebody there. So just keep that in mind as you go and take your leadership from the military and try to make that equate to somehow something in the civilian force. So leadership is not an easy thing, right? Some people want it because it comes with some corner office, some benefits, some this and that, but you really don't understand what you're signing up for when you step into that role. Um, how how difficult or how what's the difference between that you've seen between the military side leadership and civilian side leadership?
Yeah, great question. I would say one of the largest differences is sometimes that ability in the civilian side to, because I see, I'll start off first with the mirroring pieces is, in both I see for the truly great leaders, they're taking care of the people that are in their charge, that they have the privilege to lead and serve. And I saw that in the military side. I had some great leaders that truly built me up, that truly invested in me. And I had, on the civilian side, same thing. One individual, CHRO, who really I mean, in the 3 years that she was my leader, I saw myself growing and developing so much because of how she took care of me, how she took the opportunity to mold me, and what she opened me up to. And one thing that she taught me that was a little bit different from military perspective is she said, you really have to own your role, Jared. And she said, one thing that for her success had been realizing that if she sat back and waited and said, well, my leader hasn't given the strategic direction, and so I can't move forward, that wasn't going to fly. And in the military world, sure, you have to take action as well, but we also have those things called orders. And so you could be that owner as well, but you also had some different parameters at times. And if that order was there, you knew, okay, I have to follow that order. I can push back, but at a certain point, someone may say, hey, that's a direct order, you have to move forward. And being mindful of that. And in the civilian side, I saw sometimes where people were forgetting to step into that accountability at times, and struggling and thinking, hey, I have to wait for this. When in all reality, we have that flexibility to say, okay, what's within my locus of control? What can I do here? And sometimes debate in a passionate and healthy way if we see a route that's in alignment with our values. And I never had that happen in the civilian side where someone said, well, that's a direct order, you have to do it. I did have people say, okay, I appreciate you sharing that. Ultimately, I think we need to go this route, but I appreciate you giving me those insights, and I'm going to take that piece into consideration. That one, I don't think we're going to do. But if you sit back and wait, that's a place that really it can get you in a comfort level, but you're missing out on those opportunities to really set and own your reality and step forward into that path. And I think the military still allows you to do that, but sometimes that hierarchy comes in a little bit differently, and so being mindful of that. And that was one thing where some of the military leaders that came into the civilian world that I had the opportunity to coach, they had to work on that because they would wait. And that was one thing where I remember one leader coming and saying, hey, I know this individual has great leadership capabilities, characteristics, but they're not taking initiative unless I give them exactly what needs to be done. And if I give it to them, they execute it. But I need them to step into that. And I remember talking with the individual, and he said, well, yeah, I know what to do and I can take it, but there's a chain of command and I got to support and respect that. And so we had to work through that because that was something in the military, and in some ways it helped understand and helped people see that vision clearly, that hierarchical approach. But also in that civilian world, it can be limiting at times if we're waiting and we have a leader that they're not looking for that. They're looking for that person to take charge. And so that's probably the biggest one that I've seen. And some leaders transition from the military, making that jump right away, realizing it because they have leaders in their chain of command that encourage them to do that push them to do that. And I see that's something that I talk to a lot of current military leaders that have shared. Yeah, that culture has changed a lot because they're realizing, the value of curiosity and what that means, and that strong decision making. And so where that maybe used to be a crutch of saying, hey, that's a direct order, when I was in, almost 2 decades ago, now has opened up as well. And I'm seeing some of those leaders coming out now, making that transition easier than 15 years ago when I started in the leadership coaching.
Outstanding. Like, you're talking, and I'm thinking about a time where I was in, because I'm the type of, hey, if you tell me this is what you need, I'm gone. I'm
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me where, how, or anything. I'm gone, and I'll see you at the finish line, right? And so sometimes that could actually, depending on the environment. So you gotta be careful, right? You
Yes.
gotta be careful to know what environment you're in. In my case, it didn't rub people right because I was told, hey, you've only been here 6 months, and I'm like, give me a day and we're gone, right? So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that. Hey, if you are on with us, I know there's several people, a handful of people that are with us on LinkedIn. Let me know where you chiming in from. Tell me where you at, and please participate. So now, Jared, you come to this book, And I love the title, Becoming a Peaceful, Powered Leader. There's a lot to be said in silence. There's a lot to say. And I've told somebody else this before. I said the loudest sound you will ever hear is silence. It's deafening. Sometimes it will drive you mad. That's how that's how it is. And so when you talk about peaceful, powered leader, what was your thought when you started bringing this up? As a possibility of a book.
Sure. Great question. I appreciate you exploring that. And it came to a couple of different things. One being that when I resigned from that vice president role, I was certainly on a journey. I had gotten away from some of my values and realizing, okay, I'm struggling. And I went to another organization. I was a leader in that organization, but I knew I never wanted to be at the crossroads that I had experienced previously. And what I really felt and found that there were quite a few leaders that I was looking back that I had been in leadership workshops, facilitating and hearing them share in the coaching clients that I had that they were sharing that we're regularly saying, I feel like I'm not good enough. I'm not at peace. I'm trying to get the metrics that the organization needs. I'm trying to take care of my people. And I feel like I'm not doing a great job at either one. And at times struggling to give themselves grace, at times, struggling to say, okay, I've got to prioritize, I've got to put what I'm being asked for by the organization, which is these business metrics, above the time that I spend investing and growing my people. And for those truly humanistic, authentic leaders, and I believe there's so many of them out there, they want to be able to do that. But some of the traditional leadership methods, if we even had that opportunity, that was another piece that I found. I was fortunate. I had that starting with the military, formal leadership training. I'm going to give these two data points real quick that were part of my research as I was looking and searching on my journey for answers, and ended up realizing, oh, there's a lot of people that are looking for this. How can I develop a resource for them, which is where the book came from. But a poll from Gallup found that it was, I think, 82 or 83% of the organizations were saying 82 to 83% of the time they did not hire a top talent leader that they thought they were. Now, I struggled in that because I thought, is that really true? These are some great leaders. They made it through multiple rounds of interviews, and you're saying 8 out of 10 aren't meeting those capabilities. At the same time, there was another study done by a career builder, and they found that almost 60% of the leaders that they had surveyed said, hey, I had next to no training or no training at all when I stepped into a leadership role or a new leadership role. And so you can see that disconnect of organizations saying, well, we're expecting this, and then leaders saying yes, but we're not getting invested in it to help us, continue to grow in that piece. And so there's a disconnect there where both parties wanted to do a great job, wanted to see that leader succeed, wanted to help them succeed, I'm sure, and that leader wanting to succeed, but not getting those pieces that they need. And then at the same time, you have that statistic that many of us know, that almost 2 out of 3 employees have said, hey, I left the job because of my leader. And then you're sitting here hearing these leaders saying, I'm trying to do my best, but I'm missing on these opportunities. And so I went on a journey, and I talked with different thought leaders, and I have some of those interviews in the book. And, from my experience, and I talked with different coaching clients and continued to research, and found that there's really 6 pieces that when we're focusing on those as leaders, it's a place of peace where we can align to that peace. And it's a place that is powered and fueled through the things that we're doing. Because sometimes people say, wow, that's interesting. Peace and power, I wouldn't have thought those together. But as you said, one of the big things that I always talk about that's in there is, how are we curious? And we ask questions, and we can empower, we can invite people to step in empowerment in so many different ways when we're asking questions instead of giving answers, and really fuel what we're doing. And it's powerful, and it's led by peace. And so that's where some of that background came together, of me searching for that journey, seeing these studies that were out there, talking to different thought leaders, and realizing there's a lot of people that are searching for a resource, and some of them aren't in organizations where they're necessarily being invested in that way. How can I help? Because I'm not finding something that's putting it all together, and that's helping leaders connect strongly to their values and finding their peace and realizing it's their journey. And that's one thing I always tell people. And the last thing I'll share with this is on the book, that it's not a one size fits all approach, because I don't know, just like I don't know your full journey, Enrique, you don't know mine. And we're going to connect with different things. And so it's about using these six building blocks to align to, but knowing your journey is unique, which is why there's exercises in there for people to go through and different questions for people to reflect on, to really find what do they connect with, how do they build off of it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We're going to get into these six blocks here in a second, but you're talking, and I'm reminded of these times in my life. You know, when I'm growing up in leadership, and how, yeah, you get put in a spot, and it's like, tag, you're it, go for it, and you're like, go for what? Where are we going? What's
Yes.
the direction?
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's how they gave it to me, so I'm giving it to you. And you're like, what? There's these, timelines. There's these metrics. There's these things that you need. And you would hope. And Ricky had made a comment on there. Um, uh, Yet new managers are not trained on how to be good leader, nor have the support system to develop the leader in them, and that is so true. Uh, Sometimes you get into these. I don't know if it's just lack of resources or whatnot, but I remember in an interview once, I had made the last cut, and I was there. It was about to, one of those conversations of, hey, we really like you. I think we're gonna make you an offer. They say, do you have any questions for us? And I said, why, yes, I do. I said, you're putting me into a leadership position over people that have been in this organization far longer than I have. What sort of leadership development strategy do you have in mind right now for me? I'm talking about for me while I'm doing this job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, you talk about deafening silence. You're like, we've never been asked that question. Well, that goes to show you what kind of person I am.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
so
to that point, you knew to enough to ask that question. So many people get excited about, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I get to be that leader. I'm ready for this," and they don't know to ask that question even.
so yeah, and it was, I was ready for it. I was ready for it, obviously. But the funny thing is that a person could ask that, and you're ready to hire someone that you feel is good enough to lead your group, but you don't have an investment basically plan.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
don't have an investment plan. And so that automatically will chip away at a person like me. It'll chip away on the confidence that I have in this company now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you wanted me, but you didn't plan for me.
Yeah.
And so it's a for those companies out there that are listening, if you're hiring a leader, I hope you have some type of plan to help them develop in the role that you're asking them to fulfill.
Yeah.
Or else what you're going to get and left with is a lost leader leading a bunch of lost folks.
Yeah.
And sometimes those people, now, I'll tell you this, regardless of the plan of the company, the team usually comes to your rescue.
Yeah.
They usually fill in the blocks and the blanks. But should they have to?
Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
the team be in charge of training the leader? I don't know. That should be something that the company should
Yeah.
hold as a burden. But so let's explore these six pillars that you
Yeah.
mentioned of the book.
Yeah, thank you, Enrique. And so many great points you made there. And I mean, that's where that Gallup, data point of organizations saying over 80%. And you hit it right there that organizations are often forgetting about that investment. And so the six pieces with the book that I found that I continue to use. There are different times where I find myself telling myself a story, and I go right to, okay, where do I start? Which is the very first one of setting and owning your reality. It's truly about what's within my locus of control and how do I step into accountability. How do I really take a step back and say, okay, what can I do next? Because I have that opportunity here. Because so often and there's a great resource that I talk about, the ladder of accountability. And on the bottom half of the ladder is where so many sometimes lie, which is blaming others. Or the big one that so many leaders have stepped into accountability after they realized it, they wait and hope. They wait and hope that someone's going to invest in me, or wait and hope that someone is going to come to my rescue, or wait and hope that someone's going to give me that direction. Versus that top half, it's when we realize, okay, I always have a next step of what's within my locus of control. And so, how am I acknowledging my reality? How am I owning it? How am I looking for different solutions and brainstorming? And that can be tough, but it's there. How am I utilizing my team to help with that? And then, how am I implementing those solutions? And when you start to think in that mindset of where's my part? I mean, there'll be sometimes where I'm struggling with a team member previously, and I'm thinking, oh, if they would just step into this, or another team on a project, and then I take a step back and realize, okay, wait a minute, I'm blaming right now. What would it look like setting and owning my reality? Well, reality is I could go and talk to them about this. Why haven't I done that? Well, that might be a difficult conversation. I don't know how they're going to respond. But guess what? It's probably not going to change unless I go and have that conversation. And the majority of the time I go and have that conversation and they're saying, you know what? I was struggling too. I'm so glad we're having this. I wasn't sure how to approach it. And boom, I'm right there in a collaborative place, a much more peaceful place. And from there, it's, as you talked about, how are we taking care of those that we have the privilege to serve and lead, which is building others up. And that's a little bit different than investment, which we'll talk about that in a moment. But how am I building others up is really reward and recognition. And that's different for each person. How am I taking that time to get to know them? How am I taking that time to listen to them and find out what's important to them and really making sure? And how am I staying out of competition with others? So when I talk about service to others, it's not just necessarily if I'm a formal leader, my direct reports, because we have a ton of people that aren't necessarily in formal leadership roles, but they have that level of influence and impact. And so it's one, how am I embracing my full spectrum of the emotions? And making sure that I'm being aware of when I'm trying to compete with somebody and reminding myself, hey, I don't know their journey. All I know is my journey. And so again, how am I being accountable and staying out of competition and looking to build that person up in their journey as well? And at the same time, how am I looking at my emotions and realizing they're all there for a reason? Because so often we think about, because we've been conditioned to think this way, that emotions are positive and negative. And the reality is they're all there, they're within us, and that they're easier and harder. And they're easier and harder. And what may be harder for you may be easier for me. What may be easier for you may be harder for me. And so, how do I explore that? Because oftentimes that's a barrier to me giving gratitude to someone else because I'm telling myself a story. They got this because of this. Well, whether that's true or not, what do I know for sure? How do I stay out of competition? How do I embrace and build them up? And then the third one, which is one that really had me leaping into this journey in the first place because I was out of alignment with my values. And it's, how do we serve others and make those decisions that help others in lieu of self preservation? And I've had a lot of leaders, myself included, that have shared, hey, I made decisions that took care of me that were in my best interest because I didn't want to deal with the consequences and what may come out of that decision that was probably right in taking care of my people. And this is one where sometimes people will say, oh, if I'm faced with that, I know I'm going to take care of my people. And then they're faced with it and they realize, Oh, that was a lot easier to talk about it than to do it. But if you truly know your values, that's a huge one. I know you and I have talked about that before, Enrique. Anything you want to add to that? Because I know you've shared about values.
No, I mean I'm gonna let you go with these things because don't want to disturb your flow, but I'm over
No,
here
that's good.
shaking my head like yes, yes, because you know those decisions are what truly separate you from a true leader and just a positional leader. And there's a ton of positional leaders. That's just it. I was laughing today because, and I don't want to take your train of thought there. I was laughing today. I was telling my wife, I said, you know what, baby, I went on LinkedIn, and I got tired of putting my tagline to read as some business thing. I changed it today. For anybody out there, go look at my tagline. I changed it because the reality is I'm facing a uh, a situation, a circumstance in leadership where you are either fake or you're real.
Yeah.
If I put you in a positional authority and you're not capable of exercising that position, I'd much rather you say I can't. I know the money's good. I know the benefits are great. I can't, because what you're gonna do is gonna be a fake leader. That's what you're gonna be. You're gonna be a fake leader. And so I I changed it. Kind of rough, right? Kind of a rough thing to just
It's
throw out.
authentic though, right? It's
But
authentic.
that's how I was feeling today. I said, what are you really trying to help here? What are you trying to do? I'm trying to separate the fake from the real. And if you're fake, I'll help you become a real one. I could do that. But back to what you're talking about, you know, those values um, are what allow you to say, "Yeah, I'm tired of being a fake one. Let's get this right." Right. But anyway, let's go back to the pillars.
Yeah, it is. It's such a more peaceful place when I know these are my values. And I've talked with so many leaders that have said, "Yeah, I know my values." And they're working towards, living those values, but most people think they have, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 values. And there's a lot of research out there that shows most people, when it comes down to it, when they say this is a non-negotiable, is about 1 to 3. For me, it was 2. And that was a hard reality because that third one that I wanted so badly to be, I realized, oh, I've negotiated that at times and I've got some work to do there. But these two, I'm not negotiating them, and realizing that I needed to talk to some people. I need to talk to my significant other, my spouse, and share with her that, hey, I'm not willing to compromise these values, and that may impact my career at times. Are you okay with that? And she had saw me wrestling with that for about the 2 years prior and said, I am so glad we're having this conversation. Yes, I know those are your values. I know that's you, and we will figure it out if it ever comes to that. And, that's such a big piece when we know our values, to be able to go to that. And I can look at that decision and say, all right, well, I'm not negotiating on this value. And this is the right thing to do for those that I'm serving, for those I'm taking care of. And it's a lot of courage, right? You're stepping into that because I don't know the outcome. And there have been times where it's been a tough outcome. And there have been other times where, wow, it opened up some really healthy discussion in the organization. And you saw other leaders stepping into that courage and that vulnerability. And so, how do we identify our values? How do we talk about it with our team is such a big piece as well. And then the fourth one, which is the one we've been talking about, that investment.
Yep.
And it goes hand in hand with 4 and 5, because 5 is setting sacred time for ourselves. And so often leaders miss out on that. And I share an exercise in the book of figuring out how to set your sacred time on your calendar and treating it that way. I mean, like today, we had this scheduled, Enrique. Of course, I'm not going to book over it. I value you. I value your time. I want to respect that. And so often leaders won't do that with themselves, though, and put it on the calendar. I always encourage, I have multiple times throughout the week and on the weekends that are scheduled there. And it's my investment time in myself, my sacred time. And I use that word deliberate, sacred, because I should treat it that way, that I'm not booking over it, that I'm not missing it over and over again. and carry that over into my time with those that I have the opportunity to lead, because they love that. If you're an engaging leader, if you're investing in others, those people look forward to that one-to-one time with you. They look forward to discussing their goals and partnering on that. And so if I'm investing in myself and setting that sacred time, growing and developing, I'm growing in my knowledge and my skill set in what I can open the door to. And as I mentioned earlier, that chief of human resources who had done such a great job of that for herself, and the way she did that to me, she opened up a whole new world of thinking, of approach, of questions for me. And that's where I see leaders really thriving, is when they can do that for their teams, when they're walking along with them, they're coaching, they're letting that person be empowered to be the guide, but they're, helping them by the way that they question, by the different opportunities that they bring forward. And with those two, it opens the door for the very last one, which is empowering ourselves. So often people say, oh, I'm going to empower you. Well, I can create that environment to empower you, but you have to step into that. And
Right.
so, how am I stepping into it? And then, how am I creating it for others? And if I'm really working towards those first five, I'm going to have that environment where, one, I'm stepping into that empowerment, and two, I'm creating an environment where others can do that. And when I'm out of peace, there's why I start with setting and owning my reality. And that's usually where I can stop, because I realize, oh, I'm not being accountable. And I need to step into this accountability. And there's my peace. I'm back aligned to it. And other times it's, yeah, I'm being accountable. Oh, but I've gotten away from how I'm building others up or how I'm investing in others. I need to step into that in different ways. And so those six together are a model, and it's different, the way that each person looks at that depending on their journey. But that's that alignment point to go back to, if what I've found and what I've been working with other leaders on that have said, yeah, this works, and I'm getting the metrics for the organization because I have a great team of curious people, of thought leaders, of people that are working to become knowledgeable and grow and step into the empowerment. And at the same time, I'm taking care of them along the way, and they're pushing that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful way to keep yourself in line and not only accountable, but just to you, so true to yourself. When you were talking value, I remember this time. So truth is my ultimate value. Anything else after that it's a nice to have, but I have to operate under the auspices of truth. And so one time, a company that I was working for asked me to misrepresent an item, and I said, absolutely not.
Yeah,
And they're like, what do you mean? This is big. This is big. We may. I said, I didn't set that up. I didn't set that up. Your company set that up. And so now you're asking me to jeopardize my value over your setup. It's time to pay. That's
yeah,
what it is. You finally got to the point where now you got to pay for it. No, you have to. I said, no, I don't.
yeah,
And I called my wife. I said, this is the circumstance. 80,000 on the line. I know a lot of people right now could they love to make 80,000 right now. I said, absolutely not.
yeah,
And so I packed my stuff and I went home.
yeah, yeah,
1 second ago, I was in a job with benefits and absolutely not.
yeah.
And then I walked. I went home.
But you didn't lose your peace over it, right?
What? I slept like a baby. Look,
Right.
and
Yep.
until this day, there's a lady that still works there, a sister, a fellow believer. She's there till this day. And this was right at the beginning of the pandemic. She said, "What you did, I I don't know if I could have done,
Yep.
but man, has it inspired."
Yep.
And so,
Yes.
the leader, whether you're there or not, what you want to do is you want to leave a legacy of inspiration to inspire someone to be better than what they could have done. And maybe they're not ready for that type of decision.
Yes.
But that's where true leadership is shown.
Yep.
When you stick up for your values, when you invest in your people, when you're looking for, enlarging the group, right? And I love how you said it. Hey, if I did all the other ones, this one's easy, right? Setting an environment for people to flourish and all that, that's easy if I did
Yes.
all these other ones. And so I love how you did that. Now you kind of spell out peaceful, and I'm going to read it here out of the book because I love how you
Sure.
did this. And it says peaceful, and each letter represents something. And by the way, I see that the numbers have dwindled, but that's okay because somebody, and I'm just going to name it here, Ricky, Ricky that stuck with me the whole time here. You're going to get this book. So I'm going to send that to you. And check this out. It says peace starts with accountability. Embrace your full spectrum of emotions, which is important. Folks,
Yes.
don't negate your emotions over poor leadership. I'm telling you right now, because if I'm around, I'm gonna entice you to dig into that emotion and be true to yourself. A lot of folks are suffering out there under poor leadership, and it's because right here they don't embrace the full spectrum of their emotion, and they bottle stuff down. And guess who pays for it? The family they go to after work.
Yes.
That's who pays for it. And the leader, he can care less, or she can care less. Well, that's not fair. And I if I'm around, I'm gonna help you embrace that. But assume positive intent with others. I love the positive intent. Being intentional with what you do is so powerful
Yes.
because you leave no area for ambiguity. There's nothing ambiguous about what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing and when you're doing it. C, create kindness opportunities. The foundation of anything that will flourish and grow and be something beautiful is love. Kindness comes from, it's a byproduct of love. If you have love, you can make any situation. There was a Turn the Ship Around. Turn the Ship Around is a great book. A captain out here, he's in Florida, great skipper, and he turned this boat. He must have loved, he had to have loved sailors. I tell you
Yes.
that
Yep.
because just to produce something at the end, and then he had to have loved sailors in order for him to say, and the Navy and all this to get this thing right. But he
For
took the
sure.
ship, he took this boat, submarine from the worst to the best. That takes a lot of love and a lot of work. So kindness, yes, I love it. Empowerment is stepped into, not given, which is kind of like what you say. You're creating an environment for empowerment. You got to step into that thing, right?
Yes.
Find your power. And understanding should come before answering. Oh my goodness, that we could talk about that for a couple hours, right? I was asked today. I was in this. It's kind of a group, a leadership group, and we talk about a lot of things, kind of encouraging and supporting each other as leaders and executives and coaches and things like that. But the question was, do you listen to understand? Do you listen to understand? That's different than just hearing. Do
Yeah.
you listen to understand? And I was telling them, I said, I listen with my senses, which means I'm looking at you and I'm hearing. I'm hearing you, but I'm looking. It's kind of like a mix. My heart is telling me something, and I'm checking it with my eyes. And I hear your voice, and it's crackling. Something's going on here. So you got to be that type of intentional listener.
Yeah. Yeah.
And live your purpose. I love that. I love it. And so there are a lot of people that are listening to us or will listen to this replay that are not living their purpose. It's one of those things that we always ask ourselves, why am I here? Man, I'm gone through this and I'm gone through that and I'm going through this and why? Why am I here? We all try to find that somehow or another, right? I pray a lot every morning, every evening, at trying to make sure that I'm walking in my purpose, that I'm actually doing activities that feed my purpose. And so, what would you suggest for a person that just doesn't know?
Yeah, I think, the first place is stepping into that curiosity with their purpose and, hopefully wanting to explore it. I've had people over the years come and say, "Yeah, I'm really unhappy in the career that I'm in." And they're of the thought process that I have to do this in order to enjoy all the other areas of my life. And I talked about this for years, and it's become more and more popularized, well outside of my thoughts for sure. But that work-life balance, and I always push back on that, saying, okay, I understand the intent, but we got to figure out, a different way to look at that because work is a part of our life. It's one of those pieces that we have involved, just like, our family, our friends, our hobbies, our volunteer work, the community stuff that we do. We have all those pieces. And, I'm not going to continue to volunteer with a group if I'm not passionate about it because I know I'm not giving them my best and they're not, feeding what I'm looking for. Just the same as if there's a restaurant that I'm going to and I don't like the food, I'm not going to keep going back.
Right.
And some people look at those things and say, well, yeah, that's easy. I can make that change. They're not tied to my income. And I always share, you're right. I'm not saying that you up and leave today because you realize that this isn't your purpose, but what are you going to do to actively get to that point of finding it? And I always share the story. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was talking to a group about that purpose, and one person said, "Can I share this? Because I'm sure there's some skeptics in here of, oh, you don't understand," even though I would tell them, some of my experiences. And he said, I'm going to push this even further. And he was in healthcare and he spent 20 years doing something completely different and unhappy and not connected to where he just thought, oh, this is a job. This is how I pay the bills. This is how I take care of everything else. And he kept reflecting because he kept thinking, there's more. There's a reason why I'm supposed to be here and I'm supposed to be doing different things. And he found that it was in healthcare. And so he, ended up going and saving up so that he could go to school. And it took some additional years and get the training to where he stepped into healthcare. And he had been in healthcare for a few years. By that point, he said, I love what I do. I'm living my purpose, which is taking care of people this way. And I'm so thankful. Yes, I wish I would have found it 20 years ago, but I'm so thankful I didn't take 20 more years thinking that's what it was. And he set and he owned his reality. And so if you're looking for that purpose, realize, hey, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to put that work in. You're going to have to explore and find it. And it's not just a, snap of the fingers to get there, but if you work towards it. And like I shared, when I left the Air Force, I knew what I wanted to do, but that opportunity wasn't there right away. And
Right.
so I thought, okay, I'm going to have to work towards it, but I'm going to work to get there and make it happen. And it happened a lot sooner than what I thought. And I've thankfully been able to continue to do that now for almost 2 decades.
And the key there is that you worked, right? So, folks, yeah, sometimes things are delayed. I was speaking to a gentleman this morning, well, actually this afternoon, and he was like, "Hey, I'm trying to find this job. I'm trying to get this job. I'm putting in this. I'm putting in that." And I said, "I know you're frustrated, but have you considered that this is for your benefit? That you didn't get that job that you was looking for because it wasn't gonna be so good, and your real job, the one that you're gonna love, is on its way." I said, "Keep doing what you're doing. You know,
Well said.
you're not getting those other jobs, so you you can't do nothing about that. So don't focus on that. Focus on the fact, wow, what was it that why I wouldn't?" And if you dig deep, sometimes you go look at those companies and look at the reviews and things that people leave, and you're like, "Woo, thank you, Lord, I didn't get that one," right? And so just a change of perspective, but you have to keep plugging at it. You have to be consistent. Grant Cardone, I watched one of his videos that he goes, if you have discipline, you can have it all.
Yeah,
If you have discipline, so you got to keep doing it. And so, yeah, folks, if you're having a problem with any of the things that we covered tonight, and Jared, if they are and they want some help, how can they contact you to get that type of guidance that you provide for leaders out there?
sure. One of the biggest places that I love to connect with people on, it's where you and I connected on, Enrique, is LinkedIn. I try to share different resources and different insights there, and connect and learn from others as well. But I'm active on there, so they can reach out to there, as well as my website, peacefulpoweredleadership.com. And there is some additional resources as well, and where they can reach me and inquire about what they're looking for from a growth and development standpoint. Those are the two primary ones.
Outstanding. Well, folks, thank you for being with us tonight as we covered leadership or becoming a peaceful power leader. Tonight, Ricky won the book. And so, congratulations, Ricky. DM me your information, and I'll make sure that you get that. And Jared, thank you for sharing, not only for the service piece, but for sharing what you've done now, and creating this or writing this book and getting it out to folks so now they can get better. Um, and I will make sure that your website and all that it's in part of the comments so they can connect with you. Folks, connect with Jared. He's a great person. I love what he's done in the development sector and continues to do that as he works in his own company with the book and all that he does. Jared, thank you so much, brother, for sharing tonight with me. Any parting words as we get to close?
That big piece that we talked about is I always share with people to step into curiosity, because when you
Mhm.
step into curiosity, it's a connector, and when you're doing that, you have the ability to inspire, you have the ability to spread kindness, and you have the ability to really make some meaningful connections. And so stay in that curiosity.
Outstanding, folks. Stay curious. Don't get in areas you ain't supposed to. Now, I'm just saying, but stay curious in terms of your development, in terms of where the possibilities can be for you. Continue to plug away and don't give up. We'll see each other on next Friday. It is actually our last Aloha Friday live for the year. It's gonna be a doozy. Well, I might even do a hula. I don't know. You got to tune in. I'm sure I won't, but but in any case, thank you, Jared, for being with me. Thank you, everybody. Mahalo, Luinor, and we love you. And be careful. Enjoy your weekend ahead, and we'll continue to do our job on the leadership front. You guys continue to plug away. Aloha, everybody.